Now, first question is, are we working? And yes, I can see the sound going up and down because that's been a common problem, hasn't it? Right, welcome to the corrected week 8. Unfortunately, it was pointed out to me that the lecture and the PDF lecture notes I put into week 8 are actually week 9. So I'm a week ahead of myself. So if you're looking at the topics, it's something I overlooked. Obviously, the week numbers went from week 1 all the way through. And because we had a week off, I had week 6 in there. So that would have been topic 6, but now it means week 7 was topic 6. Week 8 was topic 7, if you get my drift. So I have now recorded the one that was missing. So here we go. We're going to have a look at eco-sustainability with urban planning, systems and services all rolled into one. We're still using the old terminology of the eco-sustainability in this one. I really should have made that just sustainability, shouldn't I? So if we just cast our mind back a little bit, and I've seen some of this coming up in the draft assignments that I've been referring, going through, proofreading for you. We started off in the early years with, like, you know, the sort of lean-to round house with maybe a little picket fence around it and a few animals wandering around and a few trees outside. Then it got a bit more nasty, so we ended up with the castle on a moat with a wall around it, mainly for protection of the landowners, etc. But they gradually developed where you may probably, like if you go and look at York in Britain, you'll find in the middle of the city is still the castle. And all these radiating, I won't call them roads yet, call them tracks, were going out to join with villages and farms all on the outside, and little dots, I suppose, mean the size of the population is increasing, but we no longer have to worry about being attacked by Vikings, Picts, and gargoyle things. I don't watch these programs. I would normally say it was things like Klingons and Romulans, because I like Star Trek. But sorry about that. But nowadays we seem to have gone into this meandering pattern with blobs around, and villages have been absorbed in the main city as expanded, becoming suburbs. Interesting point. And according to Lars here, and I've read his stuff, he likes to think of it as seaweed, tangled seaweed. And it does look like a seaweed plopped on the ground, and maybe that's how we should teach town planners nowadays. Give them a bit of Lego and seaweed. So you can see we've gone from that to that, and some of you have pointed out as well, we've returned in certain areas to the walled thing in the old people's homes and stuff. Let's just have a look. You can see the two different examples that we were considering a week or two ago. So up on the top here, the top part diagram, these are the traffic patterns we don't like, but it's what we build nowadays with cul-de-sacs and loops and crescents, which increases the amount of travel time and distance and cuts them off. So this lot cannot get to, say, that's the school maybe. They can't get there without going down onto this massive great main road, which in America and other main cities like Birmingham in Britain, this is now a raised highway, 6 lanes wide. So you are completely cut off from the other side of town and flip through underneath. So your residential's there, that could be your school. This could be an industrial site where these people work. It'd be nice if they could just nip across, wouldn't it? But no, they have to come down here and up. Talked all about this. That could be the shopping centre. So that's the way we're developing at the moment, whereas this is a little bit like the grid pattern, a little bit more wobbly than the grid pattern, but it's basically there, where the shopping centre and the school's over here, the shops are split here. You've got roads that are interconnecting. You can get across nice and easily. And this is the way we really want to try to go. This is a connected neighbourhood. So we want to come back to something like this if we can. But it's dictated because everyone uses their own private car nowadays. Traffic is one of the big problems, and a lot of you on the draft assignments I've looked at have already picked up on this. You might generally be able to expand it a little bit now. I'm giving you this. But as our towns are growing, our cities are growing, we're getting more suburbs. They're more isolated and disconnected at the moment. Traffic can't cope with it. The roads were never designed for this amount of traffic. Originally, they were designed for light traffic, mostly public transport. So we get massive congestion. We've all experienced it. Anyone who's tried to go to a concert or or anything like that, or a sporting event. I mean, like I used to try to get into the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and for the last 5 miles would take 3-4 hours. Eventually, myself and my friends gave up, and we used to all chip in and get a helicopter in because it was so much easier. But that congestion was enormous, and you get that in every city, especially at rush hours or if any roadworks are undertaken. Completely screws everything up. And of course, all those cars and trucks and vans are all pumping out pollution out of their tailpipes. We talked about poor air quality, I'll give an example in a while. And there are occasions when traffic just comes to a total stop. I once got stuck on the M11 motorway near Cambridge in Britain, and I didn't move for 5 hours. Well, there was a little bit of snow going on, but not enough to stop it there. We ended up abandoning the cars and being taken by the police to a nearby sort of hotel because it was getting quite cold. So we do that. So if we have a look here, you can see this is how most people travel. So everybody's using their own car. People here using bus and trams. If you went back to the 1920s, 1910, that sort of time, the bus tram would have been the biggest section because they just weren't affluent enough to buy cars. Air time, well, that's me every Tuesday and Thursday, flying backwards and forwards from Brisbane, and then I get in the car and drive home. A train, I do use the train to go into Brisbane from home, but apart from that, not really. It's not something I choose. Strangely, when I'm in Europe on holiday and that, I use the trains an awful lot more because they're designed better, they stop more places, and they're not too expensive. They're great in Italy because they serve wine, Chianti on the train. That's brilliant. Bicycle and walking. Well, I used to bicycle, but I got so large I keep bursting the tyres, so I tend to walk a lot now. And then other, I'm not quite sure what other could be. Could that be the dudes on skateboards or rollerblades or something like that? I really don't know. Could be huskies if you're in a cold climate. But you can see it's mostly the automobile, and that's what's having the major effect on our planning. This was based in Sweden. It was a few years ago, so I suspect that maybe the bicycles expanded a little bit, and the automobile has shrunk slightly, but not by an awful lot. And just an example, I mean, Los Angeles, I've been there a couple of times. I've gone on holiday and I've flown into Los Angeles. I've never really stayed there more than 2 days. Can't stand the place. But I don't even know how a GPS handles that. How can a GPS get you through this? Look at the amount of land that's swallowed up just for the car. It's ridiculous. Not only is there the environmental impact of all the fumes and the fossil fuels being burnt, but look at the environmental impact of all the concrete and everything that's gone into that. Unbelievable. Then you can get total gridlock, and then they're just not moving at all. Looks like an American one again there. And then, yeah, I scratch my head sometimes. I mean, I actually live in Brisbane. I mean, I live just here. So I'll go to a pub there, but I live just over here in Cleveland. And these are the toll roads and some of the tunnels. And we've just started building another tunnel, a toll tunnel. So, yeah, you build a tunnel, go from A to B. Well, it didn't make a lot of difference particularly. Knocks 5 minutes off your trip, maybe. That one there, that's the airport tunnel. I'll take you out to the airport. It's a nightmare if you get onto that. You can't find your way off. GPSs don't work in the tunnels very well. That's a highway, and there's a highway. And all it's doing is, as these highways are built, they're opening up these areas for more residential development. So you're getting sort of satellite suburbs now, which have to drive to work. So you're encouraging this reliance on the car. How many kilometres per person in a 24-hour period have we been driving? The average distance, so 20th century, and this only goes up to about 1998 or 99. I mean, we've got another 17 years here, and it's only gone up since then. I just couldn't find the graph. But in 1900, we hardly drove anywhere. Now, we all know the car was only invented 20 years before that. So the only people with a car were the stinking rich. So there weren't many of them. So of course they didn't travel far. Like everybody relied on horse-drawn buses and things back then. Then you get to the 1920s. This is about the time when Henry Ford starts to kick in his effect with the Model T, and you get motorised buses coming in, replacing the horses. And we're moving a little bit further. We're traveling a bit more on a car journey, burning more fuel here. We get up here just before the Second World War, about here. Starts to increase. Obviously, motor car production's increased, mainly driven by America at this time because their middle classes could start to afford vehicles, and they were beginning to build their suburbs outside of the cities, so they were having to drive more. And then it's sort of like it goes up until you get to sort of that's about the 50s. Just after the war, there was a big boom in house building all over Europe. So people had to start driving from home into work, and a lot of the cities had been bombed out in Europe, so they built the industrial areas and that in new locations quite often. So they had to drive to those areas, and then through the 60s, which was a big boom time, mostly around the world, affluence shot through the roof. Everybody bought cars. Everybody wanted a new house, a modern house, which were not in the city centres. So suburbs were exploding. Car usage. 1980s. That's roughly about the area I decided to. I was at university and then graduated. It was yuppie time in the city, and we were all mad. We had money. We just couldn't get rid of the money we kept earning. We all had flash cars. We all lived well outside the city. Some people that were well off had second houses in the country. They drove quite a lot. Remember, this is an average. And then it's been climbing ever since. So at the peak here, 1996, 98, the average was 46, 47 kilometres a person. Statistics are wonderful. I mean, when I drive to the airport on a Tuesday morning at 4:30 in the morning to get my flight, it's already a 32-kilometre drive. So by the time I drive back, I've done 64 kilometres, and that's just to the airport and back. And then when I go shopping, I reckon I clock up about 150, 200 a week. When I was working for myself, I regularly clocked up 600 to 800 kilometres a week. And in the UK, I was doing 300 to 400 miles a week. Sometimes I did 250, 300 miles in a day, running around looking at properties. So, yeah, it's increasing. It's associated with affluence, triggered off by the motor car. And then as the car gave you mobility, then you started moving out into suburbs. Vicious circle, really. There's an interesting little one here. So this is the petrol used per annum per year by each person. So this is per capita. So that doesn't mean people who own cars. That's everybody. So, you know, a 2-week-old baby is included in these because that's a per capita baby. Can't drive, obviously. So, and then there's the density. How many people are squeezed in to a bit of land? So if you come up here, say Hong Kong, we all know Hong Kong is really dense. Lots of high-rise buildings all squashed onto a couple of these islands. And of course, there's not a lot of chance to drive cars in Hong Kong. They generally rely on public transport. So Hong Kong's here, density very high, and some of the Chinese cities and that could possibly come into this nowadays. And they're using not a lot. Still a fair amount, but not a lot. Interestingly, very interestingly, Moscow uses less than Hong Kong. Moscow is less dense than Hong Kong. So, well, hang on, if it's less dense, there must be more travel. But of course, what you've got to remember is Moscow only became a free capitalist economy 20 odd years ago. People are just beginning to get into cars. And I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen those car crash videos because they obviously can't drive, but there's a lot of cars. So I am surprised Moscow's so low. Singapore's a bit higher. Tokyo, very dense, not really car friendly. Moscow's quite car friendly. Vienna, London. London's got a very good public transport system, so is Moscow actually. So I know a lot of people that commute to work use the underground and the railways. And London has put the kibosh on using the car to a certain degree because they charge to enter the London zone. And it costs you quite a bit each day. Paris, a bit more car friendly, not as dense as London, a bit more spread out, using a bit more. Then you come to Melbourne, Sydney, Toronto. Look, we're even less densely populated, which means we're further away from everything, I suppose. And look, we're out in the middle here. Then you get to New York. Now, New York, you would have thought New York was really dense because you always see these pictures of New York being high-rises. I'm assuming that a lot of suburbs around here are incorporated. They're quite car Washington and Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the city of the car, so they use an awful lot because they're really spread out. Now, I always thought Houston was a nice small spread out little city, and was quite fairly dense, but it's not. It's not. Look, and look how much they use. They must all be driving in from branches. That's an interesting thing to think about. We start looking at the transport part of things. How can we affect transport? How can we manage it and make a change to it? So we want sustainable mobility. We want to get around. We want more efficient transport. More efficient transport here. So sort out the trips. I mean, I could tell my wife this. She'll go shopping, come back, forget a jar of honey or something, and go back again. So make sure you at least take a shopping list with you. Driving style. You can drive economically. You don't have to slam the accelerator on like an on-off button and bang your foot on the brakes. Look ahead, slow down, be more gentle. You can actually save 20 to 30% of your fuel. Choice of car. Well, if you want a V12 Aston Martin, like I do when I win the lottery, it's your choice. Generally speaking, you can choose cars with smaller engines. You will notice if you look at new cars nowadays, there are lots of them, especially European cars, are 1.4 litre turbocharged ones. And of course, we've got the electric cars coming in. Car maintenance, if you keep your car maintained, your tyre pressures up, that helps reduce the fuel. Keep your speed down. Share your car. I mean, I would share my car with Swedish au pairs at any time. I do give my neighbour next door a lift around, and a old lady starts to give a lift. Joint distribution, these are those cars you pay for to use and then leave them somewhere so that you actually own it. Carpooling, try that. They sometimes, in some countries, they actually have carpooling lanes on motorways. Information technology, well, GPSs and things in cities to tell you to avoid traffic jams. You could work from home, teleworking, as I do Mondays and Fridays. Web conferencing, which is what we're doing when we do our tutorials, can be done from anywhere. And video conferencing, same thing. So that means you don't have to travel into work all the time. Difficult convincing some employers of this. Community planning, shopping centres, great. Everybody thought it was great when the shopping mall turned up. I remember the first one opening in Britain, and everybody went to it. It was miles away, but it attracted everybody, and it killed off the old city centres and high street shops. They just couldn't compete with them. Of course, you have to drive through all the time. Waste management, that's a sustainable thing. Do you recycle it? Do you burn it to make power? How far are you from work and shops? You'd like to be within walking or bicycling distance. Often you're not on these new estates. So, pedestrians and bicycle networks. There are towns, especially in the lowlands, in the Netherlands, etc., that really do cater for bikes. And good public transport, whether it's trams, buses, trains, whatever it is, good public transport, specifically kept away from the traffic congestion. In Brisbane, we have the busway, which is a completely separated roadway. It's only one lane wide in most places, but because they timetable the buses, they don't hit each other. But they just whiz past the traffic. You're sitting on the motorway crawling at 20 kilometres an hour. These buses are whizzing by. So public transport. New vehicles. Well, there's vehicles that can run on gas. They've been around for quite some time. There's flexible fuel cars that can run on gas and fuel, or they've got petrol or even fuel cell and hydrogen cars. There's been a lot of work on those. There's no infrastructure for filling these up, keeping them going yet. And then there's electric cars. They're making a lot of headway. It's only the batteries that are holding them back at the moment. Once electric cars can do 450 kilometres on a charge, and they can recharge in probably less than 10 minutes. That's it. Petrol engine cars dead. And as we noticed in the UK and in Europe, they've actually put down, I think it's 2040, when you won't be able to buy and register an internal combustion engine car at all. They're phasing them out. You've got different fuels, alcohol, biogas. So it's interesting how you can see where we should be trying to head for. How much do countries invest? And we touched on this once before. They invest in cars. So you've got Finland. Finland's changing slowly. They invest a lot in bikes and increasingly in public transport. And those cars are just diminishing. Germany, still quite a bit on cars, but reasonable there. Holland, lowlands, Delft, and that, look how much they put on bikes. Brazil loves buses, public transport. And you can see the energy consumption. So, oh, look, an airplane's not very good there. Use a lot of energy. And then a train and a bus. Yeah, train's a little bit less than a bus, the automobiles here. And then what they pump out, the nasty gases. Transport energy efficiency, just a quick snapshot of trucks and taxis and all these sort of things. When I fly these most of the time, look at that. My plane's more efficient than a taxi. Yeah, that good. Makes me feel so much better. Scooters and motorbikes, all the way up to cycling, which is very efficient. Energy uses per capita in 2006 across the world. So energy uses, this, the redder it is, the worse it is. Oh, look, we're the same as up here. Who doesn't use an awful lot? Well, they don't in the middle of Africa, India, but that's changing rapidly. So interesting to see. And there's the breakdowns of the sort of power use. I'll let you have a look at that in your own time. Beijing, lovely. That's quite typical when they end up with the wrong weather conditions and their pollution. They like to put smog, because London used to have that in the 1950s, mainly from coal-fired heating. They all wander around wearing their little masks. These two blokes are going to die before she does, I suppose. So just so you know, there's China, there's Beijing in the middle there, and this is the levels of pollutants that have been measured over the years. So they have made an improvement slowly but surely. They have been getting better at it, but it's still far too high. Just a snapshot from the newspaper that I spotted. So, air apocalypse. Isn't that great? What a job to write headlines. They think it kills 350 to 500,000 people each year, just from pollution. Zero carbon Australia. Oh, back to the pollution thing. Remember, we did talk about what the physical effects were. You had cancers and your respiratory illnesses, etc. Now, Zero Carbon Australia, a bit of a pressure research group, they've had this idea for this high-speed rail link to try and cut down on the amount of goods and commuters, etc., that are travelling by car up the connecting Melbourne to Brisbane. When you think about it, we're probably the only country in the world that's not actually connected our major cities with a railway. I mean, they always say it's too far. Well, I think it's rubbish. We've got plenty of land. We could build this really quickly. But that report, and I've added that report in the resources if anybody wants to look at it. You don't have to. I'll just put it there. I did mention the electric cars coming. These are all electric vehicles. People think they have to look a bit dodgy, but they don't. I mean, there's a BMW sports car, 300 grand, I think. That's an Audi R8 Electron, which you can actually buy. So that's their sports car, but electric. That's the BMW i3. You see those around quite a lot. That's a small Renault. Can't remember what it's called, but it's electric. Big in Europe. That's a Fiat 500. They make electric ones in Europe, but they haven't brought it here yet. Delivery vans, it's a Renault again. Delivery vans are electric, and they are going around now. These are not prototypes. And London Transport use fully electric buses, and they're buying more of them. So the electric vehicle is not coming, it's here. These are not hybrids, by the way. These are all purely electric. These are. So when you want to start being in your sustainable development, etc., planning, we've got things like we need sustainable forestry, because we like to go around and look at them, and the moose like living in them, and we like to chop them down to build houses with. So we can get the timber and the forestry waste and the raw materials all come out of that somewhere. Farmland, we like to farm ecologically if we can. Crop rotation, orchards, blah, blah, blah. They look like hairy guinea pigs, probably not. And these have to be come out, so, energy crops, like if we're growing rapeseed or sugarcane that's going to be turned into E10 fuel, it goes out here and the crops come out and the animals come out. Here's a nice railway whizzing through. Then, as we know, because we've all researched the water now, that we need water to live, so we need wetlands and we need fish. Aquaculture, salmon, prawns, produce snapper turtles, I suppose. But that's all taking place in what we call the country. When we come in from the country, we now get to the technology side of this. So all of this stuff. So here we've got hydropower, that's using the water. So the water's coming out there in the country, it's going through the hydropower. We've got wind power going. We've got artificial wetlands and nutrient traps to put them in filter beds for our sewage. And we've got CM ships. And all this is connected. You see there. So water from agricultural land goes into the artificial wetlands because it might be contaminated. Some traffic water. So here you've got food processing. You kill them, chop them up, bake them, milk them, whatever you want to do. That can create biogas from the food industry. The biogas can be reused, it can be sent back as fertilizer, the solid part of it. Over here we've got industry that's dealing with all the forestry, so sawmills turning to pellets, co-energy generation, burning the leftovers, you can make paper out of it. All interconnected, so the bio waste from the paper and biofuel can go into the biogas plant, they're interconnected, energy crops can go into that. Now we get to the last level of it here, so we've now got the town where we live, we've got transport for food habitat, so transport. There's a railway station that goes all the way through bikes, and you've got biogas driven buses, fuel cell buses, ethanol, hybrid, electric. They're all in here. They let you move around. And then this one for food. Yes, it is absolutely true we eat too much meat. We should eat less meat. It's better for the animals and better for the environment. I do try to get my wife to do vegetarian meals 2 or 3 times a week. And then you can have markets and farmers markets going on and dining and leisure activities. And you come across here to the increase in non-material consumption. So solar panels, which I'm glad to tell everybody I now have 6.5 kilowatts on my house in Brisbane. Put it on a few weeks ago. So we've got green roofs, photo roofs, and it's all beginning to reduce the amount of power. We could find we can put burnable waste back into the incinerator to generate power, or maybe community heating. High-rise living or high density, and I'm just going to ask you questions. Not giving you the answers because I'm not sure what they are sometimes. High rises, they separate people from the street. So yeah, if you're up, do you ever come out your high rise? Because nowadays, a lot of the high rises we see being built have got gyms in them. They might have a bar in them. You may never have to leave. So you don't get to see the street. You don't get to spread your economic value around. High rises are definitely, I would say, they're not to a human scale. They're quite imposing. Do they reduce the chance that you're going to have encounters and closeness? I mean, I know when I go out walking my dog, I always meet people and have a chat with people, get to know people. You go shopping, you could be sitting at a bar or something, and people you know just wave at you. It's a nice social feeling. It's good for your mental health until you get to about the 5th pint of beer. Are high rises, I think, just vertical sprawl? Interesting. I mean, they can be an eyesore at times, but we're just sprawling vertically. I love the way we're doing it. How many of them, on a side note, have got the flammable cladding over them? That's a bit worrying, isn't it? Why shouldn't you wait till the lift breaks down? Then they're good for your health. You have to use the stairs. Or they might not be good for your health if you've got a heart condition. Another thought. High rises, they're generally considered to be gentrification. Look it up if you don't know what it means. There could be some inequality because they may be quite expensive, some of these. Low rise to mid rises, generally they're around for a long time. They're more affordable than the real high rises. Are high rises green? Are they sustainable? How much material goes into building one and the energy to run one? Interesting. And are they good for your health? There's conflicting evidence on this. Some say they're good for you mentally, some say they're not. If you're a granny or a single mother with a small child, do you get out as often as you would do? If you've got heart conditions, there's arguments saying that if you use the stairs, it's good for your heart condition. But you could say the opposite if the lift breaks down. So they're all questions that you consider. How about eco-villages, eco-sustainable communities? When I was growing up, these used to be called communes, but now they're not. They've taken on a much more normal appearance. There is a picture of one. This is in Scotland. This is the last lecture used this example. but I've actually been there. So there's a nice picture. They're all sustainable. They've all got photo valves. They've got district heating, everything. This is it. Findhorn Foundation towards an ecological village. There's more than this. If you type in ecological village and do a Google, there's loads of them. There's some in Currumbin, some at Mission Beach. They're all over the place in Australia. Most of them are quite normal. A few of them might be a little hippie. I'll let you just try and read your way through that. But if you go to their website, this is on their website. Probably more available. And if you've got any questions following our little chat now, our little mate here, Harvey, would like to know. Just one of the pets that I photograph for people. Lovely little chap. And I'll see you tonight at the tutorial. Keep sending your questions only by the Q&A board now. And anybody who still wants me to review their draft assignment, you've still got a bit of time to send it in. But you're beginning to get the cut-off date, so don't be too long. Goodbye.